What is up, everyone? My name is Spring. I am the commissioner of Falinks Draft League, which is a VGC Pokemon League, which right now means doubles exactly how you can play it in Champions. However, the important word in there is draft. Each season, teams take turns picking Pokemon for their team, usually about 10 Pokemon, and because we usually have around 16 players, that means everyone's team is going to end up with some number of bad Pokemon. Then we take our teams and battle it out over the course of 8 weeks, and then the top teams move on to playoffs. Now that's just a basic overview of what draft is. There's plenty of big content creators who have more in-depth guides and explanations for what draft is. But what I bet most of you are wondering, if you somehow managed to end up on this video, is what makes Falinks Draft League special. The biggest, most obvious thing that makes FDL special is Falinks Bot, the absolute GOAT. Falinks Bot is a Discord bot that I personally programmed, and it handles everything to do with the draft, including actually drafting, so everyone's picks, as well as notifying players when it's their turn to pick, which means that our drafts usually run super smoothly. We typically complete them in an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the number of players and if there's any issues. There's usually at least one issue. That's Falinks Bot also handles all of the waivers, so you don't have to wait around for a mod to actually put in a waiver in the spreadsheet. It just happens immediately for you. But the big thing that Falinks Bot does is every single week it creates a private channel on Discord with both you and your opponent. So you never have to worry about hunting down your opponent. You automatically have a place to speak with them. And if there's ever any sort of dispute or scheduling errors or you need an extension, me or one of the other mods have direct access to that discussion channel. So it's really easy for us to answer any questions that you may have as they come up. And while I would say Falinks Bot is the big obvious thing that you'll notice is different with FDL, I would say our spreadsheets and documentation are also a step above the rest of the competition. And while our main draft spreadsheet may not look anything special other than automatically updating with Falinks Bot, the real secret sauce comes in our draft helper, which is a spreadsheet that every player has access to make a copy of for their own use. The main thing that I see most people using is the match dashboard. This gives you a really easy overview of your weekly opponents, because you can just put in your team and then whoever you're playing against that week and get all of your stats, a really nice speed tier, as well as what the maximum speed each Pokemon can hit and what their Scarf max speeds are. And while none of this is information that you couldn't get on your own, makes it really easy to access because you don't have to worry about putting in your opponent's team every single week. Another thing that we do offer, which comes up during the draft, we have a search tab that pulls information directly from the main draft sheet and allows you to search the available Pokemon while the draft is happening. So you don't have to sit through searching Pokemon on the Showdown Team Builder or on like Cerebi, trying to find Pokemon with specific moves or stats or type combinations, and then also have to go check to see if that Pokemon is still available on the spreadsheet. You have a very easy access to figuring out, okay, I still need a B tier Pokemon. I want it to have Intimidate, and all of the Pokemon that are still available show up. So you're not having to sort through, is this Pokemon I want even in a tier I can still take? And is this Pokemon even still available to be taken in the first place? Makes the draft run so much smoother. Plus, we also have team card stats for everyone to take a look at, so it's really easy to see both where you are at in the season as well as your opponents. So Falinks Bot and all our documentation are the two big things that make FDL stand out from other draft leagues. There's some other unique things that we have that aren't necessarily unique to us, but I do want to point out so that way you know what you're getting into if you decide to sign up for a season. First off, we do always play in-game. We used to call this on cart, but since Champions doesn't actually have a physical cartridge you can buy, I don't think that's the correct word to use anymore. But we always like to play in the actual games, so that way for people who like to record their games, they get nice, pretty graphics. But also, now with Champions allowing us to do spectator mode, we're able to hop into other players' games who don't have a capture card or the ability to record and commentate their games as well, which is something that we're starting to do with this season. And we actually just created a new FDL YouTube channel, the channel you're on right now. So make sure you subscribe if you want to see more Draft League content, including strategy guides, lore videos, and of course, commentated matches. One thing that you might see is different for most draft leagues compared to FDL is how we rank the Pokemon. Most draft leagues, like the Wolfie Draft League, use a points system where each Pokemon is worth a certain number of points. Then you have a certain number of points to spend on Pokemon for your entire team. However, we still like to use a tiered system, meaning that every Pokemon's put into a tier, usually S, A, B, or C. Sometimes we've had a D or an F tier as well. And then everybody gets to pick a certain number of Pokemon per tier. This has a couple advantages. For one, it gives us more control over the tier list instead of just using Wolfie's point list. So it allows our drafts to feel more personalized to our players, but also offers up some unique strategy around trying to find Pokemon that are undervalued, or rather perform better than the tier that they're in. But it also means that making team changes mid-season is a lot easier, because if you want to only get rid of one of your Pokemon, you just have to choose another Pokemon in that tier, as opposed to usually having to figure out how to finagle your points around, which usually results in multiple changes to your Pokemon, so that way you're not wasting points. Lastly, the strategy for a tiered draft is different, as you can more easily plan around taking high value picks later in the draft because you know what people still have picks in those tiers left, so you don't have that constant worry that somebody just decides to dump a bunch of points on that high value Pokemon you've been waiting on. And when you do get sniped, it's easier to steer your draft when you don't have to worry about perfectly lining up all your points. Another big thing that FDL does is how we handle tiebreakers. Most draft leagues respect your time and do tiebreakers either based on game differential or KO differential. But for us, we have a tradition of if there's a tiebreaker for a spot in playoffs, you have to play that person that you're tied with. One, it means you're never getting unlucky based on the tiebreakers. You always have a chance to get in on your own merit. But it also means that when you're playing games, you're never worrying about giving up or taking KOs, and you can just play every game optimally. Not that you're going to play every game optimally, because we still count KOs for a different reason, just not for tiebreakers. And by count KOs, I mean we count KOs per Pokemon with some pretty silly rules. Basically, every single season, we keep a record of how many KOs every single Pokemon gets, so we can know which Pokemon was, I want to say the most violent, but so that way at the end of each season we can crown the Pokemon that did the most damage. So while you're not worrying about your KOs for the chances to make playoffs, it is a side game going on that you can choose to try to win. And when I said our KO counting was silly, I meant it. We have an extensive list of rules for who to attribute KOs to, which includes stuff like self KOs. So if you click explosion with one of your Pokemon, it counts as KOing itself. And if you manage to KO your partner, that also counts as a KO. So sure, click that explosion, get 4 KOs every game. And speaking of being silly, one thing that we do allow is a more lenient version of Species Clause. While we require each player to maintain Species Clause in matches, we don't necessarily count it per team, which means in the past, we've had teams with multiple Rotoms. You can't bring them both to the same game because of Species Clause, but you can have both of them on your team. And in the case of multi-battles, when we do multi-battle seasons, fingers crossed it gets added to Champions at some point, we count the Species Clause per player. So in our last multi-battle season, we had teams built around double Ogerpon or double Tornadus. And let me tell you, that was a fun finals. So yeah, I hope that gives you a good idea of why you should be joining FDL. We have a lot of fun here, and we'd love to have you. There's a link in the description with the Discord invite so you can be notified when our next season starts. If you want to continue to have Draft League content pop up on your feed, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Thank you for watching through the video.